Welcome to Fast Pace, the new growth, leadership and management podcast featuring Josh Phegan and Dean Mackie. We wanted to peel back the layers on what happens in the world of fast-paced real estate agencies, from new leadership models to the management challenges we all face each day. This is about a new era in the estate agency sector. Rapid changes to business models, service lines, remuneration and growth present the greatest opportunities that we've ever seen. Sit back, get inspired, grow your skills and reimagine what's possible with Fast Pace. Every Friday, wherever you get your podcasts, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts and Josh Phegan Digital. One of the greatest challenges, Dean, is that, you're running a team and everyone's at very different levels. You've got some people that have been top performers for a long period of time. You've got people that have been around for a while, but maybe have fallen a little bit off in terms of their performance. You've got a hungry, new emerging set of talent that's coming into the business, and you've got to try to fill the gaps in all of that knowledge. And Dean, that's really hard in learning and training and development programs to kind of do that at scale. But ultimately, just in a small team, big team, how do you fill the gaps in knowledge, and what's the important knowledge to be filling right now, if you are helping to grow and develop teams?
It's very good conversation, Josh. I think that over the years, I've learned a lot of things around, whether it be a smaller team or a bigger team, around this training space, and I think it's one of those things that people find. They think they just turn up to something, and as long as I'm doing something, it's going to be okay. And I think there's a lot of wasted time and a lot of return on investment for some people with what they do. And I think the most important question, which you just touched on, was, what's actually required? So getting clear about, what is it you need? What is it that we currently need to focus on? And what am I trying to achieve with my team, or what am I trying to achieve with my business? Getting clear on all of those things then helps you sort of work backwards to say, what do I need to do? So are there people in my team that can upskill, improve skills? Do they just have blatant poor competency on some things, and if so, then I need to identify what they are and then put a plan in place, right? Or actually, we've got no one with this skill set. I need to go and hire, right? So I think the thing is getting clear about where you're at and what you're chasing is probably the most crucial piece. And then once you understand that, then you can identify where the gaps are. And look, many years ago, I remember doing a training session with you. You might not realize this, but there was like a list that came up and it had all of the things as an agent that you would actually need to do to be successful. And they were sort of in like key categories. It was sort of like, admin, prospecting, whatever. So I took that and I put it into buckets, right? And then I listed all of the items, so if you're into prospecting, then high competency-based thing for prospecting, if you were going to build out that module for training or testing somebody on skills, then you need to be good at negotiation, you need to be good at managing a CRM, you need to be good at time out. So certain things you have to be good at, right? And so then you go, okay, well, below those buckets, what are the little sub-segments of competency that you need to be able to display? And what I did very, very simply was I took all of those things, I basically cut and paste it, put it on a spreadsheet, put a little box on each side, and I give it to people and say, right, how about if we're going to do a review of you for your business plan this year, we also need to build out a development plan for you, right? So what are the things that if we focused on first would give us the biggest result to help your business improve? And so I'd get them to go through and rate themselves out of 10, just their own self-scoring, and I'll do the same, and we get together and compare the scores and then go, right, for the next 90 days, we've just identified that this is probably the biggest, most important area for you that you've got deficiency in at the moment that you want to improve on. All right, let's just focus on those to get you from a score of 3 or 4 or 5 up to an 8, 9 or 10. And so just simple little things like that. You can do that in any team, I mean, I'm about to jump into a coaching session in a couple of weeks with one of my high-performing teams, and they want me to help them with their business plan, right? Now, the first thing I'm going to do is give them a whole bunch of homework, pre-work, I should say. So when they get there, they're going to have done most of the work in any case. But some of the questions I'll be asking as the pre-work is, does everybody in the team have a job description? Yes or no, right? When was the last time that you did performance reviews against that job description, right? What competencies are in your team are people are doing well, and what are they not doing well, right? What are all these things? Because it's very hard for me to help them build out a plan if we don't know, because straight away they should be doing 90-day reviews of their people every 90 days against the JD and against KPIs. And if they're not, then they don't know how that person's going. So then in doing so, you're actually then saying, well, you're actually doing all this stuff really good, Josh, but these other 2 or 3 things that I need you to build competency on, we're not quite there. So what do we need to do? And that's the question. What do we need to do? So then you're saying, okay, well, can I provide the training, coaching? Can someone else provide it? Is there anyone else in the organisation that does that function really well I can team you up with? And so on and so on and so on. You can then start looking for the solutions, but it's a matter of identifying the gaps. So there's a number of different ways to identify that, and then you can build out a plan.
Dean, I was speaking at a big conference one day, and the guy before me was the guy from The Pursuit of Happiness. And it was, it's a phenomenal story, right?
Awesome.
And I'm on for 15 minutes after it about how to get better fees in the lounge room. And I learnt that day that literally if you want to appeal to a massive audience, you start at the visionary level. It's kind of like an inverted triangle. And then as you go down into really specific, tactics, then that actually gets to a much, much smaller audience. But it's really, really potent for that audience because of how far it can move them because they've actually got that problem. But if you were in that room and fees weren't an issue for you, I was kind of irrelevant there for you for a bit. But if you had just lost 5 in a row on fees, you were writing 10 pages of notes, right? So the secret of what I found is that, okay, great, think visionary. What's the stuff that is really applicable to everyone? So goal setting and energy management and, how you run your life and all that sort of stuff is really applicable, and also to market knowledge and where it's going and what you've got to do next. But then you've then actually got really specific tactical things that are really relevant to very specific audiences. And that's a really important conversation to think that whenever you're building out your training program, the best clients that we work with give a really specific brief on what they need for this specific audience. The days of being in a room for the whole day are kind of gone, and you're now actually going, we're going to go and spend 90 minutes broad base around this, and then we're going to do a little 45-minute session specifically on these things on how to run a better team, which is really specific for that particular group. And this is a really important conversation to get right, that you've got so many great people in your organisation that are talented, they can actually go and run those sessions, and they actually learn more by teaching, training and delivering it to their peers rather than just being the person who goes, that was good. And actually really getting people involved as a part of that conversation.
Well, it just comes back to what are you trying to achieve? What's the objective here and what we're trying to achieve? So that then, when you ask that question and you be curious and just probe a little bit, you're right, then you sort of start to identify where the pain points are and where the opportunities are. You also then need to make some decisions, because if you've got a team, if you're talking about a small team or an EBU or whatever, sometimes you might have someone who's a bit of a generalist who gets across all sorts of stuff, right? But then you might have people in very, very specific swim lanes, right? So they might need very specific type of training. If there's someone who's out to try and generate new business, then trying to get them to worry about the admin piece is probably not what you want to do, because you're putting square pegs in round holes. People got different aptitudes for different things. So therefore, if you've got someone who's in the prospecting lane, well, what are all the competencies you expect to see out of that person? How I'm going to hold them accountable, and where they're good and where they're not, and how we're going to help them get better. And if they're just not the right person, then maybe you need to find someone else. So find the right person for the right job, hold them accountable, and get clear on where they're at and what you need to do. So whether you have to train them or hire elsewhere. But for me, Josh, it's also, and you talk about this quite a bit. We talk about when you're looking at training, I think where people are falling down a lot these days too is technology is improving. And so as technology and systems and tools and all that sort of stuff is allowing you to do things differently, people are just not choosing to learn how to relearn how to do things in a smarter way, right? So we've learned some stuff around how digitally that we can do to help agents get highly targeted prospecting going, right? To get lead gen. And it's incredible how many people just want to stick to the old way of, I want to put an ad in the paper and put some deal cards in the letterbox and just hope for the best, as opposed to very highly targeted specific campaigns that can land the exact person you're looking for, in your inbox, at exactly the right time. So therefore, I think when it comes to this skill piece, I think it's not just skill. It's about being prepared to unlearn and relearn. So I think having people in your team and your business that have a curiosity and a bit of a learn-it-all culture is really quite important, because you're going to be, over time, you're going to find the systems and the way you do business and all that sort of stuff is going to change, right? So I think a willingness to know that you have to be prepared to make that change. Otherwise, you're going to end up with dysfunction and resistance inside your team. So I can think of a team at the moment where I know there's a person working in that team that sort of runs generalistly that EBU. But that particular person has got a lot of fear factor around letting go of some things, because and it's actually holding that team back enormously, because that person doesn't want to get on board with new ways of doing business, and therefore the agent doesn't want to deal with the headspace of that because she in particular takes a lot of stress and pressure off him, and he's too scared to lose her. So therefore he doesn't put in place the new technology or learn the new way because he's getting held back by his admin assistant, right? And wow, it just seems crazy to me, you know.
And it's like we did that conference over in Japan a few years ago in Tokyo, right? And Hilary Corner spoke a lot about process improvement and Kaizen and whatever. And one of the things that really came out for me was that the biggest area of opportunity in our businesses is to cut wastage. So get rid of the stuff that doesn't work.
Start doing what's not working. How do you? So when you're doing all of that, it'll open up opportunities to go. Oh, hold on, we're not so good at this. We need to learn some, new ways of doing business.
And it's amazing as we watch, the Di Jones story unfold, that you've got some very established businesses that have been around for a while, and you've got some newer ones that are growing and startups, and so the different stages of growth.
Different needs.
And looking at that, you go, well, hang on a second, why is that business so great at open for inspection conversions, but that particular business, it's not even a lead source for them right now? Oh, well, they've got to get the open numbers up and start to drive that, and different market, holiday market and those things. So know what works and amplify it is the big lesson for me.
Well, Josh, to finish off, one of the things, as an example, we're about to launch an emerging talent program, right? So, and one of the things I said to my executive team, I said, guys, if we're going to do this, we need to do it properly. And I'd like to actually go out and understand before we try and get everyone together and try and, get people moving through a fast track program. What are we actually trying to achieve here, right? What does the sales agents who those emerging talents could be, in those teams? They're going to have people come out of their team and attend training, right? They're not going to be happy about that unless there's meaningful improvement of what the training's giving them. And each one of these individuals will probably have different training needs than each other. So let's actually get a letter out or a briefing out to our agents, let them know about the program, run a survey on what they think their people need most, get the individual to do the same, get our sales manager to do all that, put it all together and go, let's identify now who needs what, and what are the priorities? Because otherwise we're just putting people through a program that doesn't shift the dial. So if you're going to put training in place to improve people's performance, it's got to improve performance, right? And you don't know that if you're not actually pressing on the right buttons.